Hey guys, what's up? Asad here. And this is my review of the Moto X, the newest flagship phone from Motorola, and the first phone Motorola made since being rebranded by Google. So let's start off with the design. I love the Moto X's design. It has a soft-touched curved back that just feels great in the hand, and it's an extremely compact phone, being almost the same size as the iPhone 5, but having a much larger 4.7-inch display. And speaking of that display, it's a 720p AMOLED display, so it's a fantastic contrast and colors that's great for media consumption, and it's very hard to notice the difference between this 720p display and a 1080p display, so actually no complaints here. The only problem I have with this display is that it's hard to see in direct sunlight, maybe because it's an AMOLED display and it doesn't get as bright as an LCD or an IPS display. I also really love the dimple on the back, because your fingers naturally rest on top of it and it just adds to the great handling of the phone. And above that dimple you have a 10 megapixel camera. I'm basically going to say that the camera is really bad. I mean, in daylight situations and good conditions, the photos come out okay and decent, but in any other situations, it is just very bad. There is a lot of noise and softening, and it doesn't see very well in low light conditions. Images do come out very blurry and pixelated, and it's just not a great camera if you want to take photos in anywhere but the perfect conditions. The camera interface is super simple with an exposure and focus ring and a tap to capture, and you can easily access the phone by rotating the phone sideways back and forth, which is really nice. One of the biggest draws of the Moto X is that it runs near stock Android with little to no added software, and also receives relatively quick updates to newer versions of Android, coming in right behind the Nexus devices when Android 4.4 came out. The two major added features are active display and always on listening. So active display. Active display shows you the time and notifications whenever you move the phone or take it out of your pocket, so you never have to wake up the phone. Now, if any other phone tried to do this, it would drain the battery life completely because you'd have to light the whole display. But since this is an AMOLED display, only the small white pixels are the ones being lit. Secondly, always on listening. Now, this is essentially always on Google Now. If at any point you want to do a Google search with Google Now, you can simply say, "Okay, Google Now," and the phone will immediately start searching for whatever you want. Now, this will work when the phone is off, when the screen is off, when the phone is in application, when you're playing game. It'll work with anywhere as long as you say, "Okay, Google Now." Now, whether this is the most useful feature is debatable, since you're probably going to be looking at your phone anyway when you search for something. But it is a nice added feature, and I think when people really start to use this, they don't want to go back to a phone that doesn't have this feature. It actually does work pretty well most of the time. The phone actually has 3 microphones inside, one at the top of the phone, one at the back of the phone, and also one in the chin of the phone. So call quality is really good as well because of these 3 microphones. Now, inside the Moto X is probably one of the reasons why it is a very controversial phone. It essentially has mid-range specs, and it has its own system inside called the X8 system, which essentially consists of the dual-core Snapdragon S4 Pro, the quad-core Adreno 320, a separate chip for language processing, and another chip for contextual computing. And those extra chips are needed for all the extra features like the active display and the always-on listening, without having to drain the battery life. But even with these mid-range specs, the Moto X still performs like a high-end phone. I mean, I played so many graphic intensive games on it, and I really don't see much difference between this and something like a Nexus 5. It really is on par with a lot of high-end phones. So you definitely won't be disappointed with the performance of this phone. The only complaint I could think of with this phone is how well it will age over time, because it does have a slightly weaker CPU, and that might be a problem a couple of years down the line. And next I want to get to the battery life, since clearly Motorola made a lot of sacrifices and clearly paid a lot of attention to the battery life. How is the battery life, you ask? Well, in a short word, excellent. Motorola claims you can get 24 hours of this. I mean, maybe a lighter user could get that out, but I haven't. But I still have a ridiculous amount of battery life. There is no problem. I have had no problems getting a whole day out of this phone. The Nexus 5 that I previously reviewed could get me through the whole day, and by the time I got home, I had maybe about 10, maybe 15% battery life left. With the Moto X, I can get about 50% left, and that's really astounding. I mean, I probably could last up 2 whole days if I really was a bit light on the use. And also the speaker on the back, it is back facing and it is only one single speaker, but it does get quite loud and it does produce some decent volume. And it may be a bit tinny, but at times, for a back facing speaker, I think it is pretty decent. There's also the fact that you can customize the Moto X with Moto Maker. You can have tons in different colors. You can change the back color, the front color, the color of the buttons and the ring around the camera. There's just a ton of different things. You can go for even different materials like wood, and it's just really amazing. You can really personalize this phone, and I really think the Moto X is really one of the best phones you can buy right now. But anyway, guys, that's been it for my review. What are your thoughts on the Moto X? Please leave that in the comments below, and if you could give this video a thumbs up, I really appreciate it. And obviously, if you haven't subscribed, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And until next time.